Evangelical Christianity taught me to be lazy intellectually. And I say this because I was an evangelical for the first 3.5 decades of my life. Ignorance is bliss. In a way, there are things that I miss about being evangelical, which is not knowing how some parts of the world work. Just being able to stick my head in the sand and think it's all figured out, God's in control, and I don't really have to think about it. I've even heard people say about like the election, it doesn't matter, God's in control, so whatever happens, happens. So I don't even know why you do anything. Same thing you'll hear people say about prayer. Um, you know, why pray if God's going to do whatever he wants anyways? It just doesn't make sense. And it also makes you just intellectually lazy. You don't have to think. And especially as a woman, I was almost discouraged thinking. I went to a public school up through sixth grade, and until my parents kind of became a little more zealous. And I loved to read up through sixth grade. I really liked reading. Going to watch the librarian read to us was one of my favorite things. I liked checking out books. I liked buying books. Um, and then I got more zealous because my parents did. And I went to a small Christian school and I hated reading. I absolutely hated it. I'm not exactly sure what caused this, other than, first of all, it was kind of discouraged to be even smart. As a woman growing up, as a girl growing up in evangelical Christianity, I was encouraged to focus on the physical size of my body, keeping it as small as possible, and being attractive to the male gaze. That was pretty much it. Of course, it's not said in that way. Um, but the message is, the programming comes across subconsciously. And I received it. And my whole goal was get married, have children. That's my highest calling. I do remember that being said specifically. The highest calling of a woman is to get married and have children. And I did that. And I have enjoyed being a mom. I have enjoyed being married to my husband. I've enjoyed these things much more since deconstructing from evangelical Christianity, but I enjoyed them. I stayed home with them. I homeschooled my children for a decade. Um, though it was not all pretty, though. There was a lot of things I didn't talk about, a lot of things I didn't share with others, not even my husband until after we began to deconstruct, because I felt evil and wrong, and I couldn't really even look at my own feelings. I couldn't really look at the shadows, because that's where sin was, and that would be doubting God and all of these things. So it caused me to stick my head in the sand and just force being happy. So it was false, or what do they call it? Toxic positivity. Um couldn't, any negative feeling was a bad thing and you just shove it away. Um which caused resentment. It causes bitterness. It causes all sorts of things because those emotions get trapped in your body. Period. That's what happens. Um and it also, as I stopped loving reading, my curiosity had to come out somewhere. And where it started to come out was when I began to homeschool my children and I started to get really bored. This might be due to my ADHD, I don't know. Really bored with the curriculum because I had 5 kids spread out over 10 years. So every couple of years, I would have to do the same books over again. And I remember being irritated as they got a little bit older, as our oldest did, in some of the courses, because we were using Christian curriculum, which was very limiting in the way it teaches. And I started to look outside of the Christian curriculum and got into secular, what evangelicals would call secular education. And actually, that's where everything started for me. I started to think for myself. I started to be very curious, like, wow, I did not know this happened in history. And it's just was a snowball effect from there. Because thinking is the enemy to evangelical Christianity. And I know they will say that that's not true, but it is. Um, Once I started to think for myself, it just affected every single part of my life, not just the part how I related to a deity. It affected my marriage, it affected my parenting, it affected my view of my own body, it affected my view of education, it affected my view of who I am and learning and discovering what I like, what I don't like. Um it just made life wonderful again. Like when I was a child and I was curious because I was a curious kid, um it ignited all of it when I was able to think for myself and not just believe things that were told to me, not just say, here's the answer, kind of like how creation is taught, like, here's how God did it. There you go. That's all you need to know. Instead, it's like, sheesh, how did we get here? And, what does the evidence point to? Let's study the evidence. Let's look and see if we can discover. Like that's much more exciting. That's a much more enjoyable way of exploring the world rather than Jesus. Jesus is the answer for everything. So basically, the point of this post is if you're just coming out of evangelical Christianity, you might be overwhelmed with all the information coming at you or the unraveling of some of your beliefs and the tugging at you look at one belief and it starts to unravel in front of you and another belief gets hooked by it because they're connected and um, you're going to be a completely different person. You will like yourself more. You will like others more, even if they don't believe like you. um, it is a really interesting journey. It makes life fun again. It's not all rainbows and roses. It is a lot of struggling, um, a lot of dark nights of the soul, but you get stronger. You're able to handle more, and you actually really feel engaged in life, and your curiosity is uh, there's just nothing. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of deconstructing is being able to be curious and learn and grow. So enjoy the ride.